President Rouhani of Iran has uh, welcomed essentially the election of Joe Biden and opened the door to the U.S. returning to the JCPOA nuclear agreement. And of course, this on the surface is certainly basically good news. The tension and violence and rhetorical insanity that's been going on since Trump was elected regarding the U.S. Iran policy is probably going to go go back down. It's been boiling over for the entire Trump term, and it seems likely that the Biden administration will be able to calm the tensions and most likely renew the JCPOA. And the credit for that really goes more to Iran than anyone else, because Iran played a very good game against Trump by being willing to not jump too far out of the deal and maintaining essentially the deal with the Europeans, even though the US had left, and generating enough goodwill around the world that the United Nations actually repudiated Trump and slapped his face. So that has set the stage for a Biden administration returning to the deal. Uh, the this actually offers us a good kind of symbolic snapshot of what was wrong with the Trump administration. Trump was elected promising to make America great again and to return the United States to a path of pursuing its sovereignty and pursuing its own interests rather than being hamstrung by other countries. But even though that was what Trump was saying, what he actually did when he took office was surrender to Israel and Saudi Arabia and let them run U.S. Mideast policy. And the first thing that he did was essentially follow Netanyahu's orders by tearing up the JCPOA. And then he even went further and endorsed permanent Israeli occupation of occupied territories and the so-called capital of Israel in occupied Jerusalem, Al-Quds. So Trump was a bigger liar than even the American mainstream media ever told us, because essentially he was elected to focus on American interests, but once elected, he became the most abject tool of the most extreme wing of Israeli power and the kosher Nostra, or Israeli mob, of any American president, which is really saying something. Uh, so that's why Trump lost. Was he didn't really do what he had promised. Had Trump actually pursued American sovereignty in all respects, including going against Netanyahu, going against the liberal Zionist consortium that rules international and especially Western finance, if he had seized the Federal Reserve and insisted on following the Constitution and having the Treasury Department actually print American money rather than allowing private Zionist banksters to print most of the world's money supply by lending it into existence at compound interest out of thin air, Trump could have succeeded beyond his wildest megalomaniacal expectations. Instead, he failed in a spectacular failure beyond what he probably dreamed as the worst case scenario. So maybe this will be a lesson to Biden, and he will take courage from the fact that the vast majority of American Jews no longer identifies with Israeli and especially Likud interests the way they used to. 77% of them voted against Trump in this election, whereas 77% of Israelis supported him. So maybe the new administration will turn U.S. policy away from Israeli control, and that would mean a more balanced relationship with other countries, especially the Islamic Republic of Iran.